Hello, everyone. A question that comes up relatively frequently is if you could only have one quad, which would it be? And normally I just kind of wiggle my way out of that by saying, I can't have one quad. I love to fly inside just as much as I love to fly outside, and I can always fly inside and outside. Not so much because, like the last week, we've had rainstorms either all day or throughout the day. It's so stinking wet outside. But I think I can finally answer that question after several years of wiggling out of that question. And my response now is if I can only have one quad, it's got to be this one, the TKS Race Rocket, the 2S. A little slab of carbon, the micro components, 2-inch prop, and it is so much fun. Now, I'm overhyped about this, I think. I have really loved my process and my experience of going through and trying different parts to kind of set what I wanted. Of course, not everybody out there is going to want the same thing I want, so this might not be for you. But I've got a couple of flights and some talking points in here as well today, and I've carry an Insta360 Go2 on this as well. It's just kind of a cruisy flight, kind of a proof of concept, but we'll get to that as well. And if you want to build one of these, I've already talked about this in a past video, that really the best way to get into this is, for one, the frames are all cut by jax3dprinting.com. So you go over there, you pick up a frame. This is the Race Rocket. It's 78 millimeters motor post to motor post, and it's 2.5 millimeters thickness. Now, there is another version that is the Rocket, which is 75 millimeters, and it's 2 millimeters thick carbon. And this one lasted a long time. It took, I don't know how many crashes, but I suspect it was well over 120 or 130 flights. I had one day where I had 3. Oh, the first crash was bad. The first crash that day, I thought I broke it. So the reason why I'm prefacing that is that you can go cutting edge, cut a little bit of weight, and have even more fun than I've been having with the Race Rocket, the 2.5 millimeter thickness, by going with this one. But you should probably get more than one of these. And I'm going to have a full list. There's going to be unfortunately, a huge list of links for all the different components that I've used. And I've got 2 of these, and I'll show them both to you. They're different weights, different sorts of builds, and I think that's important. I'm also running Emu Flight on it, and I will have a CLI dump link down in the video description. And I'm also got BlueJay on there. I'll put a screenshot of my BlueJay settings. Nothing exotic there other than I just flashed 48 kilohertz on it. So that's really it. But back to the parts. Unfortunately, getting the parts is going to be very, very difficult. A week ago, I made a video for those that watched till the later part of the video talking about how the best way to get into this is probably by buying the UAVR UZ85. It comes kind of a whoop. It's got the motors, it's got the props, it's got the board, it's got a camera you can use, and it's got a canopy that you can use. It's just like the canopy I've got on this edition over here. But that's hard to get too. I only found 3 shops on AliExpress that are carrying it, and I was told recently from Banggood that they won't have any more until the end of the month. So we still have at least another week to go before the end of the month. Maybe they show up in the next few days. They could have been wrong, I guess. And a lot of our US shops don't have very many of these parts. Last I checked, Get FPV had the CrazybeeX board. It's a board that does both 1 and 2S. But they don't have any of the Happy Model 1102 10,000 kV motors. They do have the cameras. I found the canopy is actually available. This particular canopy, which is the NewBeeDrone BeeBrain canopy, I actually found that on AliExpress as well. So doing this project, I found some interesting things. And some of you, especially people I think from the US, probably don't order from AliExpress all that much. Many of our quad shops, or our quad manufacturers, should I say, have official stores on AliExpress. And, it's just a marketplace, kind of like Walmart and Amazon and others have become, to where other people can just sell, and then Walmart or whoever the marketplace holder is gets a little part of those profits. So there's a huge list down there. I've done everything I can to try to find sources. If you're aware of someone that's got the components that make this up, please let me know in the video description or in the comment section, and I will certainly add it to the video description and all those links, because this is the longest intro I've probably ever done, and this is probably the most fun I've had in a quad. So let's get down to the desk, let's go through the specs, let's start hitting those flights. One more thing before we get down to the desk, and you're gonna maybe possibly have a laugh, and some of you longtime veterans will remember, but the flights you're going to see are on this Nano Tech battery. This is from HobbyKing. It's the 45C to 90C. Of course, C is just type text on the label. It doesn't really mean anything. And I'm not vouching for these batteries, because my batteries that I've got, they're 3 years old. And so I don't have any idea if they're still selling this battery and this chemical makeup and everything that makes it this battery today. I know it's available, and I've got a link down in the video description for that as well. So if you want to give it a go or give it a try, it's here for you. And I get nearly a 4-minute flight on my race rocket. And that's pretty incredible. Now, with more traditional batteries, like your 350s from G&B or your 350 from Race Day Quads, you'll get anywhere. My flights really kind of ranged from about 315 to, I would sometimes push 3 minutes and 40 seconds with these two batteries. And if you want to go larger, you can. Once you get to 450, you can feel the weight. But maybe that's what you're looking for, is a little bit more weight. And you do get some more flight time, but it doesn't increase that much. You'll start to push that 5-minute marker with a 450 milliwatt battery. And my favorite is going with the 350 and this 300. My 3-year-old HobbyKing NanoTech 45 to 90Cs. These are remarkable. Of course, they come with a red JST, so you got to put an XT30 on them. So I wanted to make that super clear, and probably something else I haven't made clear, but I've mentioned it in a few videos. I am not behind the design of this frame whatsoever. Well, I shouldn't say. It's not from my brain. Kevin Langlois, he designed this frame, and he has been flying this frame for a long time. I'm just kind of, I don't know, I keep thinking the term knucklehead fits the best, because I flew it on 1S, and I was like, I wonder if we can make this thing go 2S. Because 1S is fun. No problems with that. 2S is more fun. 2S is what I like. I like that throttle response, that quick activity. I want movement. I've never seen it on 1S as much as I do on a little guy like this for 2S. I could be overhyped, so we've got to get started in this video. So now we're going to go down to the desk. We're going to cover the specs. We're going to start hitting those flights. We should be able to go pretty quick through these specs, because I know them all by heart. So we've got 1102 10,000 kV motors. I've tried the 9,000, but I didn't like them as much. 13,500 kV motors seem to be like a unicorn. I really like these props. Gemfan 2023 props, of course, as I've said already a couple times, links down in the video description. I like that these corner. They still give you good long flight times. They give you good long punch. Just, they're a really good prop, and they're very durable. Do not buy motors with 1mm shafts. Only get 1102 10,000 kV motors with 1.5mm shafts. Okay, the rest of the parts. Happy modeled CrazybeeX board. It's the board that does 1 and 2S. And then we've got in this case, we've got the Caddx Ant Lite. That is the flat one. There's no screw holes. Then I've got a little loom band. It's a rubber band right here. You can see I've used my tape, my acetate or Emax tape, what have you. And then I've got a little bit of battery mat I cut on each side. And this rubber band is another part. I have found these rubber bands randomly over time. When you lay them out flat, the diameter of them is 40 millimeters. That's what I measured. I had about 5 of these around, and I've used just about everything I have on the different TKS frames that I've got. So that's another component that you are going to need to get. I'm not much for print mounts, because I find that I always rip them off, and then I've got to print another one. That's why I went with the rubber band. It's the most reliable for me. And I did toilet tank my battery, obviously, acrossways here. My TKS race rocket weighs 34.5 grams. With that Nano Tech battery I told you about and warned you about, I guess I kind of warned you about, it weighs a little over 52 grams. With the more traditional 350 milliamp 2S battery, this one's from RDQ, we got nearly 55 grams. And this battery, which is essentially the same as the RDQ battery, 350 milliamp 2S, This particular battery comes in just a touch less at just over 54.5 grams. We've already talked about the thickness of the carbon. It's 2.5 millimeters thick, and the motor post dimensions is 78 millimeters. You can see that my canopy has some grounding. That was from when I was first working on the 75 millimeter edition. I don't think you'll have to grind much off the BeeBrain canopy if you've got the race rocket, which is this one. Okay, so we're going for a flight. You can see up there in the OSD, I've got TKS 75-2S. I have to find a way to tell the difference from one to another. The flight on this is going to be 3 minutes and 53 seconds. Yeah, it's a tiny little package. It's got all sorts of punch. You know, it's not 4S 3-inch punch, but we got to keep in our perspective, you know, the size of the quad. And once we get to about the 3 minute and 15 second marker, I'm going to be quiet, or I'm going to mute myself because, as I said in another video, my neighbors across the back fence, they are outside just kind of lounging, hanging about. I'm not bothering them. I'd ask them because they snuck out on me. I say snuck. They didn't really sneak on me, but they came out and I said, you know, hey, is it okay if I fly around a little bit? And they're like, yeah, sure. We didn't know you were flying. We didn't hear anything. And so at about 3 minutes and 15 seconds in the flight, I'll be quiet so you can hear them, and that will hopefully give you a point of reference that this thing is so quiet. And I find with this, I just feel like I can do whatever I want to do. I can go wherever I want to go. Sometimes I you know, especially when I was flying for review purposes, I would get tired of doing the same things that I always do and would kind of do them in different ways. I'd have different approaches. I just felt more confident because I know it takes a hardy crash in order to hurt this thing, even with the camera exposed like it is. But of course, there's some luck in that. If I'd tried to go under the swing set or something like that and just had the perfect height to wang the camera, then the camera probably would have died. But none of my electronics died. It was only the frames, and it was only the prototype versions when we were trying to work out, you know, how far could I push this. And so we came up with the Kevin redesigned and made the front arms a little thicker and the dimensions a little thicker in order to be able to get everything in there still. So we ended up with a 75 millimeter dimensions and 2.5 millimeters of carbon. And not that it's unbreakable, because I've said this before, as soon as you say it's unbreakable, somebody will find a way. But it should be very, very robust. For our overseas friends, I know it's going to be kind of tough to get a frame, you know, the cost of expense, but I don't know, is there maybe a way to get together and buy, say, you know, 20 or 30 frames and then have them all sent and then somehow distributed? I don't know. I'm spitballing because again, I'm very hyped about this. This is, I get excited about a lot of quads, but there's something about this package, the fact that it's so quiet, it's so small, it takes small batteries. It feels like the ultimate micro to me. And if I have to compare it to something like the Baby Tooth, and no offense to Bob and any of the work he's done at all, I prefer this by far over the Baby Tooth or even my Toothpick 3-inch that runs 3S. There's just something about what this package offers me. And you know, I was finding that for the first time in a long time that I was taking this with me. If hopefully the video is going to be, it might be long enough. I've got some flight footage. It's not that it's impressive from when I would just take it over to where our girls swim, and I'd go to this little open section that's got some trees and fly it, because it is very, very small. It's very, very quiet. And I had confidence I wasn't going to run into somebody who was going to be mad at me. And I could just go over there and have some fun while I waited for the girls to swim, because they swim for an hour and a half to an hour and 45 sometimes. Okay, we're just about done with the flight. We're going to come in here in a minute, and I'm going to be quiet again because I hit the ending battery voltage perfectly. Boom. All right, tell me what you think. That's one flight. We've got some more coming, but I wanted to take a moment right here to really get some input. I didn't want to rush us through the video to find, you know, that we, you know, later on, you know, we get more impressed later. I'm really looking for your initial impression from that flight and the package that we've seen already. You know, what did you expect? Did you expect more because I'm overhyping this stuff? give me some feedback about it. It won't stop me from having fun because that's what this hobby's all about, is having fun. And this little package is just a ball of fun. Now, you don't have to agree with me. We could be friends and not agree. That's all right. But I wanted to interrupt the normal flow in order to elicit some feedback from all of you. And then we'll continue on here. In our next flight, we're going to be taking a look at this guy. This is the one I call TKS Heavy, although the OSD says TKS 9000. And it says that because at one point in time, I had 9,000 kV motors on here. It wasn't bad, but it just wasn't as good as 10,000 kV motors. And this is a different build. This has got the CrazybeeX F4 Pro V3 in it, and it has the connectors that are straight instead of aligned off the board, turned. Like the CrazybeeX board has the connectors for the motors kind of turned a little bit. So that gives you a visual for the fact that these boards will work as well. This does have a built-in receiver, and I put the antenna right back here. And so I had to add a VTX, and I've got one right down there. This is the Eachine Nano VTX. It goes up to 400 milliwatts. It's one I've used a bunch of times. I've probably used it 12 or 13 times on different builds. I have had one or two give me fits. I've also got the Caddx baby Ratel inside here, the Ratel 2, excuse me. So a little bit more camera weight. This canopy, we'll get to those details, weighs just about the same as the BeeBrain canopy. So either one, of course. This one is going to fit cameras that don't have a screw mount to them a lot better than this one is going to require cameras with a screw mount. And then I've got an ORT antenna over here on the side, which is a super lightweight antenna, a little bit of a zip tie off the arm of that canopy, and some heat shrink to keep it in place. Of course, I've got another one of my rubber bands here to hold my battery in, and a little bit of battery map and the acetate or Emax tape holding my motor wires down. And as far as to get the advantage of this, make sure you're routing your motor wires out of the way of thrust. And I think that's one of the things that Kevin has done with his design, is he's designed this to where more thrust can get down past the quad in order to propel the quad. We've seen this in the Diatone Cube design a little bit, but this one is just different. We haven't seen one in this tight a package with this sort of cube or square form factor. It's not technically square. It's got some angles to it still. Okay, let's get on with this flight. Oh, I forgot the weight. I got to do the weight. My TKS Heavy weighs almost 39 grams. And of course, with the Nano Tech 300 milliamp battery, it weighs 56.5 grams. With the RDQ 350 2S, it weighs a little over 59 grams. And again, with the G&B 350 milliamp 2S battery, it weighs 59 grams flat. We'll get to why this rubber band is out here just in a little bit. As we begin here, note the battery is not fully charged. Unfortunately, I thought I would have the better part of this week to fly this one more. I concentrated a lot of my time on the original build. The first flight that we saw, the lighter build, I didn't even build this one out until we had pretty much settled on the 2S frame, or the target for the 2S frame being the TKS Rocket Race, excuse me. And then I built this one because I wanted to have another example for someone who wants to build one that has possibly more range. Of course, we've got Express LRS. It's been a hot topic. You can add one of those Express LRS receivers to any of these, and you'll gain less than 3/4 of a gram if you keep your wires short. So that's huge. And then you can put a 400 milliwatt VTX on here, as I have, and a camera that's a little bit heavier than we traditionally use in a weight-conscious build. And so that's why I did this. This will give you some idea of how these things will fly across a fairly wide spectrum type of builds. And it's a little bit of I'm sloppy from time to time. I went through, I think I had about 20 or 25 flights on this particular build, and I went through them, and this seemed to be the best one. I might be confusing myself now before. I may have a little crash in this one, I think. I have a low pass along the back of the fence, and I clip the gardening stuff, and I go down, but I don't end up upside down or anything, so I just take back off. I think that does happen in this particular video. And you can see we've got a little bit of props in view, and this, again, this would be for people who want the extra range of a micro, and for those that want a better camera as well. The camera is nice and lightweight in the baby Ratel 2, but I believe, if I recall correctly, it was still about 3¼ grams versus like the Caddx Ant Lite or the Runcam Nano 3. Those tend to come in at less than 1.5 grams. But, you know, it's an awful nice image to look at there, and it's going to allow you to fly at night, too, for those of you that live in hot areas and flying at night is important to you, and you want it in a small package like this. It's not going to bother a lot of people. Then, you know, the Caddx Baby Ratel 2 would probably be a pretty good choice. Hopefully you can tell the difference in the sound on the props as well. That was something else that I noticed when I listened to these. Of course, I'm not listening right in the moment, but the props have a little bit of a different sound as they get beat up, as you might expect, and it's a little bit of a sharper sound when the props are pretty fresh, as you're hearing now. This is relatively sharp compared to the props I've been running for several weeks. Maybe it's been 6 weeks on my other TKS, the lighter edition. So that pretty much wraps up the flight here. We're going to come with the flight time just under 3 minutes. Again, the battery was not fully charged, and this is a much heavier quad, but I was pretty happy with how that turned out. So for my last flight, I'm going to fly around the Insta360 Go2. This is the heavier camera, and it's pretty ridiculous what I did. But I'm going to show it to you. So I used the heavier quad of the two, and you can see I've got 2 little pieces of battery mat up there, and you're like, what is that all about? Well, hopefully I can do this fairly well on camera. I took this rubber band. See, now I'm not going to be able to do it. I got to get my tweezers. So I took this rubber band, and I just... Kevin asked me, he goes like, you know, I love to make films. I love to watch, you know, videos. Can it carry an action camera? And I'm like, Anyways, I'm just giving Kevin the business. So I put it through there like that, all janky, just like that. Hopefully you can see it. I'm trying to look around the cameras. I do this rubber band work here. And I pull it down here like this. And that is how I mounted this camera. I hung a $300 camera from a quad on a 2-cent rubber band. I just stuck it through here, and that's the video footage you see playing up in the corner. And I had talked to Patrick J. Clark and a few others about how I was disappointed in this Insta360 Go2. I have since done some things with support that I think helped some of the problems that I was seeing with less than satisfactory stabilization of the footage. So of course you've got your battery back here in this flight as well. So I'm just flying this thing around just as you see it here. This is the exact rubber band that I used to fly this camera around. And this flight goes on for 3 minutes on the same battery. At the time that I dug these batteries back out, I stuck with them. I didn't use the other batteries just as much because they are a little bit lighter, and they gave me the longest run time. Again, I know it sounds like I'm endorsing these batteries, but I am very concerned that something is different about the batteries that look just like this, and they have the same label, but they don't perform the same way. You know, it's been 3 years, and HobbyKing does have 2 other batteries like this. They have one that's called Match Cells, which those are bad batteries. They're not match cells. They should be ashamed that they're putting that on the label. Most of the time you get those, and they're not match cells, nor are they good cells. So avoid those. There's also another one that I think is like 30 to 70 as far as they're on the label C rating. Don't get those either. They don't perform nearly as well. Only these ones that look exactly like this are the ones that you should even bother to try. And please be conservative. Don't go out and buy 20 of these and find out that no, it just stinks. The chemical composition of the battery isn't what it used to be. That could be. That's why I'm being so over the top about trying to caution you. If you want to try one, I would love to hear your results on them. Matter of fact, I'm going to buy some more from HobbyKing after I get done recording this video tonight. I just think that's something I should have done last week, probably, is to figure out these batteries. But the safe bet, so if budget doesn't allow you to throw away $30 on some batteries that ends up being junk, I would definitely suggest just going with the G&Bs that you can find in a lot of different places. And if you're here in the States and you buy batteries from RDQ, the 350, pretty much any battery that's 350 milliamp and it's 2S, and it looks like this with battery leads about this length, these are G&B batteries. Now, I know there are other brands out there that have these batteries as well that are similar but yet different. I can't speak to them because I don't have them. And that would just be telling tales out of school, wouldn't it? So hopefully you've been watching that flight, and I've gone on long enough that you got to see all of the Insta360 Go flight footage. I was pretty pleased with it. I thought it turned out well. I'm super happy I didn't crash because it was all wet. It was during this rainy period. We have got a couple breaks in the rain coming up, maybe only a day at a time. It's supposed to rain all the way through June with like maybe 3 days where it might not rain. So future videos might be a little bit of a problem. But I wanted to show you this. I thought it was ridiculously funny, and I thought it turned out really well. And if you want to use the lighter version of the Insta360 Go, this one will allow your flight time to even be longer because it has less weight. And that's why I went with the Go2. One, because I'd fixed it and I wanted to use it after spending $300 on it. But two, it takes higher resolution and it's heavier, so it's a better test as far as what this quad can do. Of course, it wasn't a high performance test, it was just a cruisy test. But I think you find even a high performance scenario, you're going to add a few grams for a better amount when someone designs one. And you're probably only going to get maybe 2 minutes 25 on an aggressive flight, carrying an extra 30 grams. Well, 25 grams. Maybe with the print, it comes into almost 30 grams. But still quite remarkable for something that's 75 millimeters. Okay, so let's discuss a couple of the finer points about the assembly here. So if you build this type, what I found is that you probably want to have 12 millimeter screws lengths on the sides of the camera, and then a longer one, say 20 millimeters on the front, so you can really angle the camera. The back one here, I used the same 12 millimeter screws that I did on the sides, so I would have something to hook my rubber band to. And of course, you don't have to do the rubber band depending upon where your canopy ends up on your screw. The rubber band could just loop over the top because, getting this in and out is a little bit of a pain if if you were to have to replace it. I guess if the rubber band breaks, it's sure easy to pull out of there. But if you need to replace it and get back in there, that can be a little bit of a pain in the backside. So that's one area, and I do suggest using these thicker rubber bands like this. I don't have a source for these rubber bands yet. I have spent many hours looking all over online for rubber bands like this. These I think, are 5 millimeters wide, and again, their diameter is 40 millimeters. So if someone has a source and you're pretty certain of it, and black, I have found that black rubber bands last way longer than other colors. At least, especially when you compare to like office color, the taupe or tan or whatever that is. Black seems to last a lot better. But back to the build. So hopefully you can see it. So on the side here, you won't see, I don't have a nut at the bottom. I just have the canopy, which this is a very hardy canopy. You can see I've got some glue back there holding my camera in. I don't think that's necessary, but I did it just for my own purposes. You might be able to see it up front here. Let me see if I can spread this out. Up front is where I suspected most of my impact would come. So I have got a metal nut right there in the front because I figured I fly forward 99% of the time. So my impact is probably going to be up here the most. Of course, after your initial impact, you never know where it's going to come from. So I used a nut down there to make sure that screw had the best possible opportunity to stay straight up and down and not damage my board. I don't want these screws moving around and damaging, possibly bending and getting onto a component. Also, you can see in my antenna here, right there's a little nick. That happened when I had the antenna going under and behind, and then I had my little loom rubber band holding my antenna still to the camera area. But you can see it got nicked, so I moved it to the front, and I found with this canopy, having it in front is the best possible location to keep it out of harm's way. Because I have the Caddx Ant Lite in here, we probably have some heat shrink around back here. You can see from shortening my cable. Another way you can make the cable shorter is to just twist it until it becomes the right length, because you don't want that coming out here, because you can see the prop does go over that wire that comes from the VTX on board to your back of your camera. So you don't want a lot of slack in there. You want that to be not necessarily taut, but you don't want there to be enough slack to where it comes up and gets into harm's way. And that's really it. It's a pretty simple build for the most part. You just put the screws into your canopy, mount your camera however you want, depending upon which canopy you've got. We can talk about this one a little bit more because this does have a screw mount. So if you have a camera that does not have a screw mount, this wouldn't be the canopy you'd want to choose. I wouldn't suggest for you. Sorry, while I get the color corrected on this camera tonight, it doesn't seem to want to get the color quite right in our lighting here. The ORT antenna I did get from Race Day Quads. I did not link that down in the video description. I've been working on that for a while, but I will. I'll add that. It's got to be easy for me to find. The antenna with this one is a little bit surprising. I just pushed it back here, and then between flights, I find the antenna, and I just kind of push it down and make sure it has that little hook in there, and it hasn't come out and given me any fits. This one is my heavy build, so I have more metal screws and nuts. More metal nuts. You see down here at the bottom, hopefully you can see that right down there, get my camera to focus again. So down here at the bottom, we've got a metal nut, then we've got a nylon, and then we've got a metal nut. Now you don't have to do this metal nut on top, and you probably don't have to do this nylon one on top because the board will stay down because there's not much distance, as you can see, between the bottom of the camera, the top of the board, and putting something in like a VTX. So you don't necessarily have to do it this way, but I put this metal screw up top to make sure my canopy didn't move around, because I didn't want to be troubleshooting jello. I wanted to be not only not troubleshooting something, but I wanted to focus on everything else rather than a shaky canopy and then a shaky image in the goggles. So we've got essentially the same all the way around. I've got a metal screw at the bottom, or a metal nut. I keep saying screw when I mean nut. A metal nut. I've got my gummy mounting the board. Nylon, metal. And of course, all that adds some of that weight. Also, my battery leads are pretty short. That's an area where you could save weight. There are some areas you could save weight. One is just like we always see when it comes to weight savings. Remove the connectors, solder your wires right to the board. I could use less pad or use button head screws, so I could use no pad possibly, or you could just lay your battery in here. I don't suggest that you do that with a rubber band, because then you're starting to block some of that airflow that you get through the frame. If you get some battery hanging out here, the airflow is now pressing against the battery, which is actually pressing the quad down rather than going through and pressing the quad up, or thrusting the quad up. You can see here also something I should have mentioned. This is for 3-hole mounted motors only. So if you're looking at flying motors that are bigger and they have the 4 mount, now I guess you'll have to make your own holes for those. I don't suggest that though. I did try 1103 motors on this and I did not care for it. I also tried running 3S on these little guys and I also did not care for that. The advantage that you get from the cell count being higher is minimal over the 2S, because the weight offset of carrying that extra cell in your battery, and then your flight time comes way down. I had one flight on a 350 milliamp 3S battery that was 1:20. I decided I was irritated that didn't work out the way I wanted, and I was just gonna go around in the backyard as fast as I can, and I'd pretty much suck the battery dry at 1:20. And I believe, if I'm correct, that was on 8,000 kV 1103 motors. It's just not worth it. And I wish I had more combination of parts that I could suggest. Of course, you're always free to make your own choices and go your own directions. These are the motors, the combination of parts that I have used, that I like how they fly, and they give me what I want. Now, if you're not an avid builder, I could see how you might be pulling back from this, but there's no soldering going on here. Well, that's not technically true. I shortened the wires and soldered for the cameras, so there is some soldering. And if you shorten your battery lead, if you buy a board that's got the battery lead attached, then there's some soldering there as well. But at some point, if you're going to be in this hobby very long, you're going to need to do some soldering. Something else, if you don't have it, I'd suggest you get is one of these little screw kits. These are 1.4 pitch screws. There's also some 1 and 1.2 pitch screws in this. I got this from Amazon, but I wanted to give you a look at it so you would kind of know what you're looking for in shopping. I will link this way down in that huge laundry list of links down in the video description. but it'll be an Amazon link because that's where I got mine. I know you can find all sorts of stuff on eBay as well like this, but that's always hit and miss as far as me providing a link, because then I'm just chasing down a new listing as the, I don't know. I just don't link eBay stuff. I've been asked that a few times. Also, you should have an M2 screw kit. One that comes with metal nuts. See right over there? Metal nuts over there. And unfortunately, I looked. Race Day Quads was out of stock. Get FPV. I didn't find it on Get FPV's site, but I'll look again before I publish the video. I would suggest having one of these, because you may find that, you know, maybe you want to get that screw height just the right height for your canopy. You don't want to have any extra sitting out there. Spend some extra time trying to shave those grams down. Trying to do the Mr. Shutterbug shuffle. That's what we should call it when you cut weight from a quad. The Shutterbug shuffle. Maybe that's offensive or something. Anyways, Mr. Shutterbug, the mad scientist, is always knocking weight down. Also, I'm really deep, a lot of minutes into this video. Jack is looking at doing a 1S version of this as a bind and fly. So if you see that listed on the site and it interests you, you should definitely take a look. Let's take a look at these components and their weight differences so you can get an idea between these two different quads where the weight is coming from. So let's first weigh the NewBeeDrone canopy here. 1.25 grams. The 3-post, really good canopy. I like that canopy. And the Crux3 Canopy is a little bit heavier, but it's within, what, 1/10 of a gram or something like that. So it's real close. I like this one a little bit better, mainly because you have more flexibility with cameras. If you put in a Caddx Ant that does have this screw hole, you'll need to glue it in there pretty firm, because I have found these kind of move around inside the canopy with vibrations and stuff. So you can just get the Ant Lite, which will fit flush in there, and it'll click in and should hold very well. Of course, I don't like troubleshooting wobbly cameras. I want to know that the camera is being held still and I can troubleshoot my tune or other things going on with the quad, not a shaky camera. That always gets under my skin. So unfortunately, I don't have another Ant Lite to weigh, so I am going to weigh this Caddx Ant to give you some idea. 2.36 grams with this one. And so the Ant Lite is, of course, a little bit lighter than that. And this is the baby Ratel 2, which is 3.32 grams. So that's, you know, part of where the weight comes from is our camera differences that I chose to use. And then, you know, there's some wiring in here. And then also I've got a VTX in here. That's got to be about 1.75 grams to 2.25 grams. Again, the extra wiring in here. Heat shrink zip tie. That's where our weight comes from. So, you know, you saw the flight footage. You get to judge the difference in the flights that you saw between these two. One that comes in about 4 grams heavier than the other. Okay, so you've made it all the way to the end of the video, and so have I. My biggest concern is about buying parts. So I'll give you my thoughts on this. The cheapest and possibly the fastest way of getting into one of these is going to be to buy the UAV UR or UZ85. I've said it a few times in this video wrong, I think, probably. I apologize. It's got everything that you need to get build or swapping the parts over to the frame. And it's going to be, if you pay over $100 for that, I'd be surprised. I saw a lot of prices that were in the 90s and even high 80s. Problem is stock and shipping times. That may mean you have to wait 3 weeks to get those, because no one in the US that I'm aware of is carrying the UZ85. The next stop that you can make is, before I started recording this video, Get FPV here in the States is carrying the CrazyBee X. At least they had stock before I started this recording. I had recently bought 3 more from them. And they had Crux3 canopies as well. And I'm sure they've got the baby Ratel 2 camera and the Caddx Ant and Ant Lite camera. So pick your camera there. But then you're down to the last part of motors. I haven't been able to find the motors in stock anywhere in the US. So again, we're going back to sources like AliExpress, Banggood, or maybe even eBay. There are some that are appearing on Amazon, but I don't trust those listings. I know Amazon's very reputable, but you know, they say the delivery is between June 27th and July 21st and stuff. I'm like, now I'm not buying that price, and they're really high priced motors. You know, if I can't get my prime shipping, I'm going to get them cheap. to offset the shipping. But so that's another possible source. I don't have any links to Amazon down in that list, I don't believe. But if you're an Amazon shopper and that's your preference that you want to go through that sort of marketplace, you can. But otherwise, AliExpress is a marketplace we can go to, and Banggood. And don't forget, many of our quad manufacturers have official stores on AliExpress. Diatone, Happy Model, Eachine. I know they're just kind of a brand, but so you get what I'm saying. And a lot of our international friends, that's their primary source. Something to think about. So I know I've given you a ton of information and I've gone on way too long. Hopefully this video has at least been entertaining. I'm very excited to read the comments. I need to know if I am just overhyped, that I've been having fun falsely, if that's a thing. But I said at the beginning of the video, if I can only have one quad, it's going to be the TKS Rocket Race. I might beg to get a second quad so I can have a Whoop too, but now this is just so much fun. So I've gone on far too long. Again, thank you for your patience in this video. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, to those that have. If you do have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know. Yeah, in that section down below, the comments section. I appreciate your time, and boy do I in this long one. Thanks for watching. Something else I wanted to show you tonight. It didn't really dawn on me what shirt I have. I have my Datacorn. I think it says Datacorn all the way down here at the bottom. Sorry, I can't quite get it high enough to see it. But yeah, it says Datacorn down across the bottom, so a couple of unicorns. And then tonight I'm drinking tea out of a unicorn cup. They've got unicorns. Here's one. Unicorn dabbing. That's funny. It's pretty good tea.